Now, the new millennium was marked by a bunch of bad fashion choices and bad choices in general. But does car styling also apply to that? Maybe a little bit. As far as I know, the retro styling craze was started by the Plymouth Prowler in the late 90s. Now, the Prowler combined old school 1930s styling with modern, or at least Chrysler's definition of modern, mechanical components. I guess it was for the people who wanted a hot rod, but didn't want to invest any time into building one. Plus, with the Prowler, you get air conditioning, so that's a nice touch. And Chrysler followed that up with the PT Cruiser, which had styling that was attractive at the time, but instead of being on a sports car chassis, it was just a neon that was made worse by adding a bunch of weight. Then GM would copy both of these cars directly by making the SSR and the HHR, respectively. Retro styling really blew up around 2003-ish. Volkswagen rebadged a Jetta and called it a Beetle. BMW revived the Mini nameplate with cars that looked like bloated versions of the classic Mini Cooper. And Fiat even got in the game with their new 500 that looks pretty much like the old one. Then Ford went all in on retro styling with concepts for a new Cobra, a new Bronco, a Mustang, and GT40. And of course, two of those cars actually went into production. After the success of the 5th gen Mustang, GM and Chrysler both went me too and came out with a Challenger and a Camaro that looked basically like the old ones. But I think the boom for retro styling started to drop off in 2010 when Ford revised the Mustang for another time, giving it a few differences to distance itself from its old styling. Then in 2015, they came out with the all-new Mustang, which does retain some design cues from older Mustangs, but is mostly a totally new look. And there's a new Camaro. You can say what you want about the looks of that thing, but it does look different at least. And one day, maybe 10 years in the future, Chrysler will actually have to come up with a replacement for the Challenger, or just discontinue it. And I think we're really on a downward trend for retro styling. Like the new Beetle and the Mini still exist, but they look way different now than when they were first revealed. The Mini tries to retain the same shape as the old ones, but I don't know what they're even doing over there. And like so many other trends from the 2000s, I don't think the styling has aged very well at all. They may have been cutting edge at the time, but if you look at like the pre-2010 Mustang or the 2009-ish Camaros, they look dated already. And the PT Cruiser was dated like 5 years before it ended production. There are some exceptions to this. I think the styling on the Prowler is so stupid that it actually works in its favor. And the Ford GT's look is just so timeless that you could pretty much release it any year. And even now, like the new GT looks a lot like the old one. Not totally like they did before, but it's a good looking car. Now when the nostalgia kicks in inevitably in another 10 or 20 years, I hope they really try to remake the terrible boxy edges of the 80s cars. That would be hilarious to look at.